banks and across the financial sector. So we're here today for a panel moderated by Shri Rajesh Bansal, who is the CEO of RBI Innovation Hub, which is a team within RBI that's dedicated to creating and fostering innovation within the financial sector. Surrounded by a powerhouse panel, I would say, of folks. Maybe Rajesh, you want to quickly go through their names, or I'll let you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Kamya, and thanks everyone for inviting me over. Maybe before I introduce, I'll take the liberty, being the moderator, of introducing what is Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. Sorry, Kamya. So Reserve Bank Innovation is the newest baby of the Reserve Bank of India, a wholly owned subsidiary, which was set up a few months ago with the aim of catalyzing and fostering innovation in the financial sector, which in simple terms means work with all of you ecosystem partners to take India's financial access to the next level. So I'll stop here. So we have with us a very power-packed panel, Shiv, Nitin, Harsh, Naveen, Sumit, and Sucharita. So I think in the interest of time, I'll go straight into the questions. Yeah. The first question is to Harsh. Harsh, you at Lending Card have been one of the key, innovators in the lending space, one of the early innovators. So in the next 6 to 12 months, what are the specific areas you would like to focus on in your AA adoption journey?
Thank you, Rajesh. Thanks a lot, guys, for inviting us on this platform. It's been a wonderful journey working with Sahmati, iSpirit, and other ecosystem players in building the AA. I still remember when, as a team, for the first time we saw RBI Master Direction for AA, we literally fell off our chairs, right, in early 2017. And we kind of felt that if this was going to be truth in the country, we are going to see a massive data revolution, where our underserved fellow countrymen will give a distinct advantage, right, in terms of data overall. And I think we've heard the esteemed speakers on other panels or other forums as well, where they've suggested that this is an information age and that the information and data of a customer is his biggest collateral. So I think from our perspective, overall, we as a team have realized that we are dealing with two problem statements. Overall, one of the problem statements is how can we customize products for the underserved segment, right? It's been a pain of designing products for them because data is not available. And the second is basically, how do you have a constant access of data for the financial products, right? Which has been a pain not only for us in lending, but maybe insurance and other products as well. So Rajesh, from our perspective, we realized that in the next 6 to 12 months, now that we've crossed this hurdle, we want to go out to our partners and borrowers, educate them about the benefits and advantages of AA, how this can help them and us in designing customized and personalized loan offers from them and maybe other financial products as well. We also want to focus on building customer-friendly and highly intuitive UI UX journey for our customers, right? Since this is going to be new, I think we've had a massive revolution in UPI as well, but I think it was driven by best in technology use and data used by the existing players to make that work. We want to also spend time on that. I think we've realized that as a leader and maybe early mover advantage also, because we've been working on this. We as a team are already using this data in origination, evaluation, and delivery collections. We want to work with larger institutions if we can collaborate with them, help them in building these capabilities, or if we can allow them, or if we can work with them to allow our capabilities to be used by them. So that's also going to be a massive push from our side, where we could request them and collaborate with them. Thirdly, again, Rajesh, our thought is that we still want to work with regulators, other ecosystem players, Mati, iSpirit, and everyone else to ensure that this is a success. We've had we've done brilliant work with UPI, but I think this will be again transformational for financial services. So we'll continue to do that, Rajesh.
Yeah, thanks, Harsh. I wish you would have also mentioned work with the Reserve Bank Innovation.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. Don't take it.
No, Rajesh, you are already there, right?
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So I'll come back to, I'll come to DMI Finance Shiv. Shiv, you also saw the demo, and I would like to pose the same question to you, that you are one of the early innovators. Where do you think is your focus area in the next 6 to 12 months?
Thank you, Rajesh. And first of all, a huge congratulations to the Reserve Bank and to iSpirit for getting account aggregator to this point. Because as Harsh said, when we first got involved in the AA project in 2017, it was absolutely groundbreaking and one of the most exciting things. In terms of where we see the AA ecosystem making the big difference, right? I mean, certainly in India, we know that there are about maybe 300 million or more individuals who are worthy of credit and yet do not have access to credit in a formal way because they do not have a bureau footprint, which is the first gatekeeper of credit in India. So for us, there are two ways to think of credit. One is that does the AA ecosystem allow an increase in convenience to people who already can get credit otherwise? And the other is that can we expand the base of people who have access to credit? And I think both of those are hugely important. And for us, the focus is going to be to make sure that we can we can increase the number of people who have access to credit. We know that today, the entire lending ecosystem spends an inordinate amount of time and effort in trying to triangulate to what is good credit because it doesn't have access to good data. So we look at alternate data sources. Obviously, we look at the bureaus, but really we spend a lot of time in looking at data which is tangential to credit, and then trying to get some kind of a reflection of what the credit is going to look like. We see the AI ecosystem basically short-circuiting all of that, right? So it allows us access to what is primary data in determining credit. The other thing that the AI ecosystem does is historically the process of credit evaluation, not just in India but globally, has been based on past credit history. And past credit history is not necessarily the best indicator of future credit performance, right? Just like the mutual fund industry says that past performance is no indicator of future success. Similarly, people's circumstances change, right? They get new employment, they get better access to opportunities. And when that happens, their ability to repay debt becomes, it changes. We expect to be able to get to that information much more directly with the AI ecosystem. And obviously we will be working very closely with the RBI Innovation Lab and hopefully with iSpirit and the entire ecosystem to get to a point where we not just make credit available faster to people who would get it anyway, but also to give credit very quickly to people who otherwise may not have had access to it.
Thanks so much, Shiv, and thanks for bringing the Reserve Bank innovation up. Sorry, I'm nudging you guys too much. Newest baby on the block, so I'm curious that all of you should know about. We are here for really taking innovation to the next level. Thanks. So I'll now turn to Epify Wealth, Sumit. Sumit, we also saw the wealth management use case that is soon coming on FI. How do you see AA benefiting customers in getting actionable financial advice from your firm?
Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot, Rajesh, and huge congratulations to RBI, Sehmati, and iSpirit for launching this. It's been a effort for the last many years. Have we got to chance to see a huge number of people work closely for it. Uh, the account aggregator is a huge step to a connected financial ecosystem. Now, today, if you look at Indian millennials, they have a handful of bank accounts with them. Almost, one account for every job they were in.
Yeah.
Which means there is a huge fragmentation of their payments. It could be from wallets, from credit cards, from bank accounts. Your non-liquid funds are from mutual fund shares. Where FI comes into play with the help of account aggregator is to providing a unified view of all your financials at one place, thus enabling hyper personalization, and that then enables to provide personalized advice in terms of based on your financial position, your state in life, so where and how to invest. You have a lot more data to make those decisions in that sense. And that's where where you'll see FI working with the RBI Innovation Hub and iSpirit and others to see what more can be done here.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Sumit. And I have a young team which is joining me now, started recruiting. And I can make out that, something like account aggregator and companies like yours will really make their financial journey in their 20s to 40s, unlike us, a friction free and a powerful force multiplier. Thanks. So I will now move to Naveen. I mean, Paisa Bazaar is a well-known name. I think most of us go to Paisa Bazaar to look for any advice, right? So you have the mind share of people. So when it comes to Indian consumers, so how do you propose to enable adoption of AA amongst your user base? And what does this mean for your own product roadmap? How do you see it play out with the Paisa Bazaar strategy?
Sure. Thanks, Rajesh, for the question. Between Paisa Bazaar and Policy Bazaar, like you mentioned, we try and help consumers across credit and insurance needs and try and fulfill them by bringing all the players or the suppliers or the partners, lending partners together. So, like Harsh mentioned in the beginning of the call, that when it was announced and it's now 6 years old, the first set of questions for people who are in the industry were that it'll be great when it happened, but will it happen and how will it happen?
Okay.
And we've seen that it's been a tough journey, but it's great to see uh, the day that has come where it's getting launched, and thanks to MOF, RBI, Rebit, iSpirit, Samati, and everybody else who's been involved. From our perspective, because we are a marketplace, we help bring consumers and lenders together.
Yeah.
It's a great news because suddenly once account aggregator is live and enabled, uh, the reason why the journeys were breaking for income validation or data validation by going to customers house or customers going to bank branches and taking printouts or soft copies, emailing them, all of that potentially goes away. It does two three very different things. Of course, it improves and furthers the digitization agenda. We've seen the progress that's happened on it over the last 18 months especially. It expands financial reach, so all a lot of fintechs who would for some reason not be able to reach to customers or even the larger lenders for that matter, uh, they will suddenly be able to reach consumers would be able to reach them. Of course, collections is a part that the lenders will need to sort out in terms of getting that sorted, but suddenly you have higher financial reach, you have lower cost of delivering that product, which furthers either improve the product pricing or expands your consumer segment. Shiv talked about the number of consumers who don't have access to credit. We see that in our data, where or in credit bureau data, that the typical approval rate for people who are applying for credit versus people who get it is between 30 and 32%. So for every 100 people who apply, only 32 odd get it. And one of the big reasons for people not getting the credit is people do not have strong enough credit history, uh, or the income documents may not be validated. There are so many companies who don't kind of offer the right quality of payslips, etc. And there is an opportunity by taking transaction data, bank data, on being able to assess them far more accurately, far better. And this is only salaried. You go into self-employed segment and you start taking transaction data seamlessly. You have a potential to expand that. So for our first big use case would be working with all of our partners, all of 50 plus partners, on making sure that more and more consumers and more partners are able to get onto this framework and make the journey more seamless, friction free for the consumers. The second use case, besides the lending part, which is fairly obvious, is the consumer use case in terms of consumers being able to get their information together. We saw that when we launched the free credit score. So credit score has been existing in India since 2004 or 5, but we realized when we started in 2014 that people were not aware when they were coming for a loan product about their credit score. They didn't know how to check it. It was not very easy. It was not digital. It was actually costing them a lot of money. They couldn't see the use case. And we saw that when you make the journey seamless, create a good experience, make it instantly available, what happens to the category? So we now have about 22 million consumers who've taken credit score product from us, because people genuinely wanted to check, track, and improve their credit score. They just didn't have access to the right product. I think the same thing will happen for financial ecosystem, where suddenly a lot of players, including ourselves, will try and make this available in a very, very user friendly format, in a very instantaneous format, in a very seamless format, and at zero or low cost in terms of getting all the information together for consumers. And then consumers, what they can do with that, by getting all data together, making their investments, making their financials far more efficient, having a clear view, becoming more financially responsible, we will start to see a lot of very, very interesting usages of that data from a consumer perspective, and hence opportunities for business. So very excited about this.
Thanks, Amin. And as we see that you have all the pipes, and I suppose tomorrow I can go to Paisa Bazaar and then take instant credit. But it really resonates with me. I worked in number of one is the RBI experience earlier, where you mentioned not just reducing transaction costs, an example of salary slips. I'm aware of so many cases which get reported to RBI where fraudulent salary slips. Now, I always wondered, how would you guys even know whether the salary slip is real or not? Even I can just get a stamp put. So, obviously, this is going to be transformational that you get digitally signed, source of truth data. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Naveen. Nitin, I'll come to you. So, obviously, Zerodha is no stranger to innovation and disruption. You guys have disrupted the way we all invest. Everybody talks about Zerodha, so I'm actually happy to have you on the panel. So tell me, how disruptive do you think AA can be, and what steps can you take to utilize AA to the fullest potential for your vast consumer base?
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh, and thanks, Sahamati team, to have me on this. I think the first use case, the low hanging fruit for us is, so we have a lot of our customers who come to us to look at the portfolios, right? And today they get to see it only across our demat account, right? If you hold stocks or mutual funds with us, you get to see it. One of the things that we've built is like this engine, which kind of nudges you if you're having a sectoral, you're overweight towards a stock or a sector. Right, but today I don't think we're really doing justice to it, because you can potentially be having mutual funds outside, or you could be holding stock holdings outside. I know that depositories and RTAs are on the way to get on A, so I hope they get on it faster than later. Because we would for us that would be the first most important use case. We aren't into lending, so we haven't really been, and we don't really we are not really thinking of lending as well. There's no lending use case with us. But on a longer term, I think what India needs, I think what Sumit was also referring to earlier, was around this whole advisory ecosystem. Right? I think one big thing that's missed out in India as compared to some of the developed market is that there's no advisory ecosystem. Right? Advisors who are not making any money from the manufacturers, but are charging a fees for advice, almost like a doctor.
Yeah.
Right? And that ecosystem is missing in India because advisors never really had access to all data. Right? One of the longer term, very exciting items coming through, AA for us is really that we think, eventually if India has to kind of do well, people have to do better with their money, and for people to do better with their money, you will need advisors in the ecosystem, because the financial education, etc., in this country is quite low. So just the thought of us somehow being able to enable advisors to do this is very exciting for us.
Sorry, I'm just asking a supplementary. It was not part of the plan. I'm curious that if I have a Zerodha account and your backend systems has visibility on my not just all the the stocks and bonds and everything. Do you see tomorrow that your robo advisory or whatever algorithms you build can nudge me into saying, hey, Rajesh, you have a currently very low yielding investment for the last 3 years, and we suggest that you potentially move to that. I suppose.
Absolutely, that's like the like I said, right? As in, I think uh, older Indians have too much weightage towards fixed deposits. The younger have today, I think, more towards stocks. I think there is a balance in between, which I think platforms like us can nudge, if if we have access to all data. So not just, as I said, even like India is under insured. So I mean, so you potentially have so many hooks there. So.
Yeah, no, thanks. So I will be. I'm sure your algos will nudge me into taking more risk and looking at higher return. Thanks. So I'll come to Sucharita. Hi, Sucharita. I know you have a lot of experience, not just as co-founder of Kaleido, but working with low-income clients. And as we all know, that the low-income clients is where the digital footprint is definitely a challenge. And so you're serving that market where we need to have this technology adopted in the simplest frictionless manner possible. So I'm very curious to know that steps are you taking to adopt and adapt AI for enable massive financial inclusion, enable access to credit for the next half billion.
Yeah. So first of all, many congratulations on the launch, and we will certainly be working together with the RBI Innovation Hub, because the one area which requires tons of innovation is the low-income informal sector customer. So just a few facts to start off. Very important question. We have 1.35 billion people in India today. UPI has definitely been a revolution. At the end of the day, this is still representing somewhere around maybe 125 to 150 million customers. So we have therefore 1.2 billion people still left to serve who are not on UPI, who have never done a digital financial transaction. They may be watching YouTube, they may be sending WhatsApp messages. Large part also have feature phones, right? So how do we now make account aggregator? How do we make these user flows that were shown relevant to our customer base? So point number one is, what is very clear is that our customers need assistance. And the assisted model has worked really well. And the NBFC MFI space, which serves about 100 million families or so today, is a great case in point where that field level assistance has really gone out to reach the last mile. Now, what we are doing, and Sahimati has just been brilliant here, uh, is working with them to create a use case for an assisted flow, where, let's say, for example, I am a field officer and you are the customer. I come to you. I have a smartphone. I know how to, enroll you, but you don't. You have a future phone, or you're simply not ready to do this yourself. And we authenticate via Aadhaar-based OTP. Or the thing is that the other problem is that Aadhaars and mobile numbers are not often linked. So you have the biometric to fall back on. So we are combining and utilizing many aspects of the India stack that have been built to really make account aggregator relevant for 1.2 billion people. Today, for example, Kaleidofin has 12 million customers in its network. About 1 million of them are actively transacting. And we definitely want to make sure that we devise both, as a new bank, better savings solutions, as well as more tailored loan products to our customers. We have product called Kai Score, which helps customers get micro entrepreneur loans. And in some sense, this savings information, and again, there are 400 million plus PMJDY accounts, largely in our customer base, right? Largely have been opened in the last 5 to 6 years. we have no visibility at all. We look at the passbooks, we have those passbook images, but I mean, passbook images are not very readable. Even,
Yeah,
even a lot of OCR technology hasn't been able to solve that problem. Because this is sort of the old style dot matrix printer. So in some sense, we have then visibility of a huge part of the customer's financial life. We have actually been doing the opposite use case for our long-term goal-based investment solutions for a while. So, for example, we help customers plan for their financial goals, like sending your daughter to college or building an extra room in your house. And we've been using the credit bureau to provide real-time financial health assessments, so they can actually take a much better, a more informed investment choice, right? Because at this segment, you cannot make a mistake. You can't say that, hey, you know what, stock market's lost money. Well, too bad. It means a lot. Our customers are already on the margin, and it's very important to provide suitable financial solutions. The onus is on us, the provider. So those are some of the ways in which we are working with Sahmati to really revolutionize and bring better, more tailored financial solutions.
Thanks, Sucharita. So, it's music to my ears, not just at the innovation hub, but at a personal level. Because it was my dream when I was at Aadhaar and we were doing PMJDY. How do 100 million NREGS workers get credit? Because the data exists, the DBT data exists. And the challenge being, how does you get access to that data digitally to drive innovation? It's good to hear that you are looking at an assisted model in India for the low-income clients. Thanks so much. So I'll come to Sumit now. Sumit and Sucharita, I'll come back to you in a minute. So as you are all aware that it is important to balance innovation with strong practices enabling security and consumer protection. So, what more do we need to do in this regard now? Because on the chat, I've been watching for an hour. A lot of questions about what happens to data. Does it get deleted or does it only get revoked? So, would love to hear your views, Sumit.
Great question, right? Data sharing, as Sid mentioned during his demo, has been like pretty broken here, right? Like the way to share in the past was SMS, screen caping, sharing passwords. It was just fully broken.
Yeah.
Consent architecture of account aggregator enables to make data sharing highly secure, also in a very timely and a real-time manner. Now, a lot of effort has been put in by RBI, Sahmati, iSpirit, and others in building Revit and building the standard in to ensure that there are security safeguards all through the way. For examples, where you have to have an audit to even be part of the ecosystem. Even if an account aggregator SDK has been used by an FIU, there are like security requirements put in there using learnings from the UPI, NPCI, SDK, and a lot has been built in there. New stuff are being built around two-factor authentication that would take the security a level higher. So a lot of safeguards have been built. The procedural guidelines also help, and these together give you the assurance that data is being securely transmitted. Now, to the important question you asked around what happens to my data, right? And so therefore the consent has both a duration for the consent as well as a data life, which means that I can say that my data can exist only for a year or a 2 or 3 with the FIU, which basically means that post that data life, you can delete it. Plus, it's encouraged and requires all the FIUs to actually allow a user to revoke their consent at any time they wish. Which means that I gave access for my banking data to an FIU, but for any reason after a couple months I don't want that access to be there, then I should be able to go back to the app, the account aggregator app, and say that I want to revoke my access and please delete my data. And that is user's right. So user now has control over their data, and this is what the whole account aggregator consent aggregator brings in.
Yeah. Thanks, Sumit. So, Sucharita, as we are aware, the digital literacy and its, challenges, especially for low-income clients, in the assisted world that you're looking at innovating, are there any suggestions that you have for the teams working on this to improve consumer protection?
Yeah, I do think that the place to work on consumer protection is really on the delivery of financial services. I think actually the way the consent architecture has been thought of in the account aggregator ecosystem is actually really robust. Even in the assisted use case, we have the mobile number check and we have a biometric or OTP. And we've also sort of included a process by which, in local language, the exactly what you're giving consent to will be read out, will be available in voice,
Oh,
not just text, because many users actually don't read text or don't prefer to read text, even if they can. So I do think that I think this is actually quite well thought through. My sense is that consumer protection, for me, account aggregator has to result in two things: better financial product design, more tailored financial products, and the cost must reduce. So, how will we judge that this was successful? Right now, if the cost remains the same, then there's a problem. Right? Then the benefit didn't get passed on to the customer, and and what we have to be really careful of is for example, the application of RBI's fair practice code. Standards of disclosure of the financial product itself have to be much higher. For example, in Kenya, we have seen cases where telecom companies, along with NBFCs, have provided $10 loans to millions of customers, and 60% of adults now have a negative credit bureau because the customers did not even know that they got a loan,
yeah.
right? And the thing is, I'm sure you got $10 credited, but what use is of that to you when you have a negative credit record now for for your
Life
history?
kind of. Yeah.
So I think that standards of disclosure cannot be sacrificed in the name of seamless execution. I think that there is a tension there. It's a good tension, and we have to keep the bar high on both. And I do think that a code, a code of for consumer protection in the use of financial services is very much required.
Uh, Rajesh, if I can just take a minute to share a very
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
anecdote related
Go
to
ahead.
consumer awareness and protection.
Yeah. No.
We done a consumer study about 1.5 years ago. Very small. We just did an online consumer survey. The question was very simple: that the financial data, the banking data, and the credit data that related to you, who do you think it belongs to?
Okay.
And the options
Interesting.
were: does it belong to you as a consumer, or does it belong to the bank? And it's so funny. I thought there'll be an overwhelming, it belongs to me, because that's what I believe in. But we were surprised by the answer. Majority of the consumer says it belongs to the bank.
Yeah.
And that, in a sense, is the challenge as we launch this, that there is a lot of consumer awareness needed about what are the rights of the consumers, what can they control as this becomes more and more prevalent, meaningful. And a lot of people will, of course, for the right reason, start using it. Consumers need to know that they have the right on defining the period for which the consent can be given. It could be as low as only for this transaction, only for a day,
Yeah.
going up to as high as 8-9 years. So we'll start to see some of those challenges, and I think the industry and hopefully RBI will start to evolve on what's required on awareness and regulation, or other protection. But there will be some paths to cover on that direction.
No, thank Naveen for interjecting. It's a good sense because, ever since I took charge and I talked to people about account aggregator, a lot of, young urban folks, they're like, but it's the data of the bank. Honestly, even the young urban, because we are also used to, the bank owns the data. It's not my data, and that's what this has got to change. That it's my data. Thanks for bringing that in. So now let's move on to open banking. Hers, first the question to you. As we are all aware, open banking is being tried in various countries, UK, Australia, and the main purpose is to bring banks and fintechs together in a mutually beneficial partnerships. Will AA further that? And if so, how?
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh. We
How's
bought
your
it.
audios? Can you just?
You guys hear
No,
me?
it's echoing. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Now?
No, there is no some drag.
No,
Harsh.
it's better now.
No. Oops. No.
No.
So Harsh, maybe I'll just come back. You can try.
You can try.
I'll just come back.
Come back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll come to Naveen on the same question. The open banking, and how will AA further that?
Sure. In terms of the partnerships between banks and fintechs, right? So, but I just wanted to take a minute again to look through the last 15 years. If you look back in the Indian industry and how internet or tech internet companies have become more and more played more and more important part in expanding the industry as well as consumer use cases. Starting from, if you go back 2003-4, I think is when travel commerce or travel tech started to play important role and started to make travel easier, make it available to consumers through technology, internet. This was also, of course, driven by one or two triggers like expansion of internet. And then after travel, 2008, 9, 10, in that time zone, uh, was e-commerce. And a lot of e-commerce growth was, of course, driven by some of the key triggers like smartphone expansion, geo launch, 4G launch, but that was also led by tech companies. And then we saw 2015-16 onwards payment, how it expanded and exploded. Maybe Aadhaar was a trigger, Demon was a trigger, UPI it has been a big trigger. And then over the last 1.5 years, we've seen investment as a category expanding dramatically, led mostly by the tech players. And I believe in the next 4 years, we will see that when we look back, hopefully, we will see AA as a big trigger in expanding lending specifically. And as lending expands, like we've seen in all industries, we'll see technology driven companies, we call them fintech for lending. Fintech will start to play more and more important role. And because it's a fairly regulated industry, they will have to collaborate with the banks and the large NBFCs, regulated entities. So we'll see a lot of collaboration between the two sides on innovating on newer products, making the reach, making the product more smaller scale, sachet-like products, creating new products like invoice-based or transaction-based lending, expanding product reach with the help of players who have consumer databases. So I'm super excited, and I think the partnership will evolve, grow, and scale, and hopefully help the overall industry also.
Yeah. Thanks, Naveen. Harsh, let's try it again. I don't know.
Yeah, can you guys?
No, funny, Harsh, it was, no, I mean, it was perfect. Sorry, Harsh. Yeah, I mean, it was perfect. I don't know why. Then I'll bring in
Harsh,
Shiv
maybe
here.
you can disconnect and connect again.
Yeah,
Try.
maybe.
Is it?
Harsh, you will have to, I think, disconnect as Naveen is saying.
I'll just do
It's a
that.
drag. There is a drag. I don't know why all of a sudden. Request if you could disconnect and get back again. I'll just get Shiv here in the same question, please. Hi, Shiv.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh, and I hope my voice is not
Yeah, no,
bothering.
clear.
Okay. um, so, I mean, I think the answer to that is unambiguously that this is going to foster much greater collaboration between fintechs and banks. I mean, open banking is a name. It means different things in different geographies. But for us, it basically means that you abstract away from the nuts and bolts of banking, right? And you provide banking. So the concept of banking as a service is different from banking in dealing with the nuts and bolts and the housekeeping items. And this the AA ecosystem certainly gets us a long way, or a decent part of the way there. So when I think of this, there are a few analogies that come to my mind, right? So today, for instance, when data itself is walled and disaggregated in some sense, then the tools for analyzing data are also disaggregated, right? Because they have to be built specifically for a particular data set or a particular protocol. And if you think of the way in which a platform or an ecosystem really flourishes, it's when you have a common set of a common language that people can talk to communicate with each other. So in the early days of the internet, for instance, going way back, right, there were a lot of competing protocols in terms of how does one computer talk to another. And then eventually people got together and they said that, okay, we're going to go with something called TCP/IP, right? And TCP/IP basically made it that, okay, this is how one computer talks to another. And now if you are working on an internet product, you don't have to worry about the base implementation layer. You can assume that TCP/IP is the way to go, right? Similarly, if you are, when I think of, if you're a novelist, you want to be in the job, you want to spend your time telling stories. You want to spend your time putting your story together, right? You don't want to spend your time in coming up with the tool that will allow you to tell the story, right? You want to be able to fire up Microsoft Word no matter where you are and start typing a story. You don't want to sit down and design Microsoft Word, right? Unfortunately, today, prior to something like AA, because data is so walled and disaggregated, every bank, every financial institution, every NBFC has to do its own, in some sense, tool building, because the way they consume data or the way DMI consumes data may be different from the way someone else consumes data. And the way data comes into DMI may be different from the way data comes into somebody else, right? So if you are a TSP, right, if you're a technology solution provider in this space, prior to the AA ecosystem, you would really have to think about which constituency are you building a product for, right? Are you building a product for somebody who is working on system A with protocol A, or you're building it for somebody else, and which is the larger market? What AA does is that it abstracts away from all of that, right? It says that everybody is going to be speaking the same language, and now the tech companies, the fintechs, can go out and build their products, assuming that the underlying language is the same, right? That the APIs are the same, that no matter how big you are, whether you are SBI or HDFC, or you are a mid-sized NBFC like DMI, you're going to be speaking the same language. And so you can now build one product that can be applied to the entire ecosystem. So I think that is a very large gain. It's an enormous efficiency gain, and it allows the lenders and the finance companies to stop worrying about the housekeeping of credit underwriting and really get on with the consumption of the data that comes in and reaching a credit decision, rather than spending a lot of time in how that data gets consumed.
So thanks, Shiv. I think we are kind of 45 minutes into it, and the event was running late. So otherwise, I was curious to do a rapid fire, but I think we'll close here. So thank you so much, all of you, for participating and giving your views. And I'm sure your consumers out there and more, uh, including the next half billion, is looking forward to all of you to make credit accessible, affordable. And what was music to my ears when somebody said customer journey and user experience, which is personally which I'm going to work on. So thank you so much, the organizers, for having us here. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you, guys. Thank you, guys. Stay safe, guys.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thanks.